A few tech channels brought this to the forefront on Twitter, and I can't resist. It is so bad and full of such misinformation. This may be how the Verge builds a computer, but it is not how you should build one.
This video is a rather interesting video. It's not a video that I usually do, but there's this video that was released by Verge. It was a guy building a $2,000 gaming PC. It's been very controversial. A lot of people have been doing a lot of react videos to it.
So a channel with over 2 million subscribers built a PC recently, and the build and the guide itself is so bad to the point where anyone should not look at that guide and take it seriously at all. There's just mistake after mistake, and the worst thing about it is we all make mistakes.
People kept on messaging me about this video from The Verge. Now, I'll say this. I'm no builder extraordinaire. I'm sure you've seen jackasses where...
So, a few days ago, YouTube suggested I watch some video called How We Built a $2,000 Custom Gaming PC. With the Trump turf wars, this might become a thing.
I heard this one was really good, so if you guys haven't heard, basically The Verge built a $2,000 gaming PC, and apparently it was pretty cringeworthy.
No, that's not drama. The Verge PC build isn't drama. That's just retardation. Like, I'm sorry, dude. What the fuck did The Verge think when they were building that fucking thing? Like, actually, no, fuck it. Let's watch that video again. I know it's old school. Let's watch.
I've just got the Verge video of Mr. Well, I don't even know what his name is. I think Sebastian or something like that.
And I'll also admit, too, man, I'm not... You know, you won't see me doing any kind of custom shit. I'm not into doing custom, like, water loops and stuff like that. I don't have the skill set to do it. I'll straight up admit it. And I'm not making it like I'm some MLG pro at builds. However, what was fail? Well, the fails that are in this Verge PC build video.
And they've disabled likes, disabled comments, and there's 13 names on those credits in the outro. 13 names. So this went through at least more than one person at the very least.
If you haven't watched this yet, it is as bad as what you've heard.
So I thought I'd jump in and do the same. I watched about the first, a minute, and I started to cringe really hard.
Because it's literally filmed by an actual smooth brain, like, who thought they knew what they were doing. Let's watch the Verge PC build video, because it's actually one of the dumbest videos I've ever seen.
I got a lot of mistakes in there, so I figured we should take a look at it together.
So a few years ago, TC, our managing editor, built a gaming desktop, but it's kind of out of date.
Oh, this video is brought to you by Capital One. Capital One, one of the worst companies you can get a credit card from.
You can build a gaming desktop for around $1,000, but I want to go all out, so I spent...
You could build one for less than that, and you could build one... I'm not saying he's implying this, but the context is key. The way he said it is like, you could kind of build one for $1,000. You could build a gaming PC. I've made videos building gaming PCs. You could get like a Dell off of eBay. Just make sure it has a normal power supply in it. You could plop a 1050 Ti in there, and you could build one for like $300. Anyway.
Okay, that's not really cringe. It's just kind of like just wrong, because you can build a gaming PC for $2,000, but there are much more expensive gaming PCs that cost much more.
Now, you can spend basically nothing on a PC all the way to hundreds of thousands of pounds on a PC. But he's specifically saying that he's gone from £1,000 to £2,000 spending that kind of money on PCs, which in my eyes makes me feel a bit sad for people that can't afford £2,000 computers.
You don't need to build a gaming desktop for $1,000 fucking dollars. That is a sweeping generalization. This sort of stuff is what leads console gamers to believe the hype, and they always run around and go, "You get a console for $400, you get a gaming PC, you need to spend $1,300. You always hear something like that.
And technically, it should be PCs in the community is about being able to find these other components and put them together and overclock them or make certain adjustments to them to make it get the extra frame rates per second to play a game. And I'm not seeing it here. It's just like, oh, we just spent £2,000.
We'll start from the start here. He says you need a table.
You need to build a desktop. Well, of course, first you need a table.
So you need a table?
Preferably... Preferably not
Thank you, Captain Obvious. You need a table.
metal.
It's like a fucking Howcast video, you know? So when you're going out camping, what do you need to cook? A fire? No shit.
It's gonna be an anti-static working surface layered on top of it, a thermal paste applicator,
What the fuck do you need a thermal paste applicator for?
an Allen wrench, some tweezers
Why do you need an Allen wrench? Actually, the Allen key in the UK. This is the UK version reaction video.
some tweezers to tighten up the wires, a Swiss
I have never used a thermal paste applicator. I have never used an Allen key. And I've only used cable ties.
Army knife,
Those
which
two are
hopefully
useless.
has a Phillips head.
At all. He then states that these are tweezers when they're clearly zip ties, and you don't need them in this particular case, the 280X, because it comes included with its own zip ties.
I haven't needed an Allen wrench to build a computer in so long, it's not even funny. The last time I used an Allen wrench, I was working on like a motorcycle. What the fuck is this?
Now, only if I was water cooling and using like EK stuff or anything to do with water cooling, you would need that to obviously tighten up the fill ports. But
An Allen wrench, some tweezers to tighten up the wires, a Swiss Army knife.
What?
Some tweezers to tighten up the wires,
What the fuck did I just hear, Lance?
Tweezers? Those are zip ties. Wait, why did he call them tweezers?
That's not a tweezer. That's a cable tie. Or a zip tie, whatever you want to call it. That's not a... That's not a...
knife which
Then he says you need like a Swiss Army knife, and hopefully it has a Phillips head in it. Like, please, just grab yourself a Phillips head screwdriver. They're $1 at thrift stores, and they even come with a magnetized head at that cost.
a Swiss Army knife which hopefully has a Phillips head screwdriver in it.
Just get a screwdriver.
Hopefully has a Phillips head screwdriver in it.
Wait. So you're not gonna bother? Hold on.
A Swiss Army knife which hopefully has a Phillips head screwdriver in it.
why would you need a Swiss Army knife?
Wait a minute. Oh, I don't have my screwdriver in here. You're not gonna bother? Oh, I mean, you could just literally have something as small as this.
A Swiss Army knife which hopefully has a Phillips head screwdriver in it.
A Swiss Army knife that hopefully has a screwdriver in it. You're building a PC, not getting a merit badge. You spent 2 G's on this fucking computer and nobody at this damn office has a screwdriver set? Like a small one at all? Are you for real? This video alone already shows you how much The Verge knows about anything. So from now on, take every video they do with a grain of salt. Because right here, I'm already just like, what the fuck am I watching?
Last but not least, an anti-static bracelet. These are the parts you're gonna need, but
Where's the rest of it?
which is to protect you and the parts.
That just looks like a rubber bracelet to me, but okay.
It's floating in midair. His wrist bracelet. What's going on there?
You're supposed to have a little, clip. Goes like this. You ground to the case.
More
Check the
importantly,
box.
Before
Check
we
the
get
box.
there. And last but not least, an anti-static bracelet, which is to protect you and the parts.
Isn't the anti-static bracelet supposed to have like a connector that grounds you? It's just like a rubber band around his hand.
If you live in a cold climate during the winter, when all the moisture's out of the air due to it being cold, there's times I walk, man, and I could touch the handle of my door during the winter where I live, and I'll get zapped. Doesn't matter what the surface of your table is made of. You need static protection, like without a doubt.
These are the parts you're gonna need, but more importantly, before we get there, we need to understand what
Oh god, this shit is already bad, and I'm less than a minute in. Why am I doing this shit to myself, man? I'd rather go fight a bull.
card than say a video editor who might want extra RAM to assist with editing large files.
No, I think video editors also care about the CPU a bit more. Like, RAM's important, don't get me wrong, but actually, this whole graph is fucking stupid. If you're a video editor, can we just be honest here? All this shit needs to be like a big giant, these squares need to all be the size of fucking, like North Dakota or some shit. Like they need to be state-sized, because all of this is incredibly important for sure. Like, RAM is important for video editors, but we really want a good graphic card, and we need a fucking high... Like, this is where, like, those Threadrippers, we, like, come over, because we need that CPU threat. We need everything. This is insane.
Other parts. And if you need help choosing the right parts for your build, there's sites like PCPartPicker.com that help show presets.
That is actually a good recommendation. It's a great site. That's what I used to build mine.
Core i5 or Core i3 processor.
Core i3 for video streaming? i5, i3 for video streaming? Are you? Oh, that's gonna hurt.
Then he goes on to say, screw in with confidence when you're screwing the screws, but don't screw too tight.
They're really delicate, you should be really careful with them. And screw in with confidence, but also don't screw in too hard, otherwise you could crack the board. I chose Asus's Z3.
I hate it when like these PC guys tell you it's super sensitive. I probably built a shit ton of computers and I've been pretty rough with my fucking motherboards. But like I don't think I've ever broken the motherboard. Like I don't think I've ever screwed so hard. Like fucking like anger and like broke the motherboard. What? Has anyone ever broke it? I don't think I have. That's sure, okay, cool.
It's just called screw in wrist tight, mate. That's what we call it. So when your wrist can't screw it in anymore, that's when you stop screwing, so you don't cross thread anything.
Asus's Z370 motherboard for two main reasons. One, it has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and also it has support for NVMe SSDs.
He's putting in the motherboard before he puts in the CPU or the RAM. Generally, you install the CPU and the RAM while it's out, just for ease of access later. But okay.
Why would you even really want to get a motherboard because of Wi-Fi? I mean, if you're building this for gaming, the last thing you want to do is be on motherfucking Wi-Fi. Why don't you cripple yourself by wearing an eye patch while you're at it? I mean, what are you thinking? I got this because it had Wi-Fi. That way I can play Battlefield 5, you and 12 other people.
Okay.
By the way, am I the only one that sort of like test benches the motherboard before I actually put it in the case? Like I actually put in the CPU and like I connected to like the PSU and I connected to everything. And then I actually like first I post it so like I know the motherboard and the CPU isn't wrong. Then I put it in the actual like system. Is that? I don't know. That's how I build, but okay.
Make sure that when you place the motherboard in the case that you have the spacers in. Put the spacers in. If you don't put the spacers in, you'll short out the motherboard on the actual case. And I've seen where people are like, oh, get it, my computer's not posting. What did I do wrong? They didn't put the spacers in, and the motherboard shorted out on the case.
I don't understand why he's putting in the motherboard, but the CPU isn't installed, and he didn't install the RAM first either. Like, it could be personal preference to RAM, but the rule of thumb is usually you put in the CPU and the RAM first before you put it in there.
And then later on they install an I/O shield, but they call it a brace.
Pay close attention to the brace that goes at the back of the computer. You always have to make sure that you really hammer it in because there's no screw. It really just has to go outside of the attention to the brace that goes at the back of the computer. You always
brace? You mean the I/O shield? What's a brace? Do you have a busted leg? I've never heard it called a brace before, but maybe that's just me. Maybe every now I'm nitpicking.
The brace. The brace. It's an I/O shield. But
hammer it in.
A for effort, okay?
Pay close attention to the brace that goes at the back of the computer.
It's not a brace, it's actually an I/O shield, and that's to stop the actual motherboard coming in contact and obviously static electricity and bang your computer. Braces is what you put in the teeth, or braces that you hold trousers up with.
You always have to make sure that you really hammer it in because there's no screw. It really just has to go outside of the case.
You don't have to hammer in that backplate shielding thing. I forgot what the hell it's called. It pops right in. You just push it in and then snap.
And they actually are, if you look at later in the video at 310, they are using that army knife and the screwdriver on it to do this PC build. Mind blowing. And then 356, I've never heard the use of the word input like this. They're inputting the NVMe into the motherboard. It's not the Matrix, mate. 421, it looks like they haven't installed the NVMe properly either. There should be a screw that goes under that end part, and then over that you put the screw in, and it installs horizontally.
This is from Kingston, And it's 480 gigabytes, so it's not a lot, but you can always upgrade this and swap it out, and it's only held down by one screw and the latch, so it's really simple.
480 gigabytes is not bad for a boot drive SSD.
And really straightforward. Speed for gaming is important when it comes to a hard drive. You want files to write quickly and you want games to load quickly, so that's why it's best if you use an SSD.
This is also factually incorrect. The SSD offers minimal gains as far as most games when it comes to gaming. Like, the best you could hope for an SSD is like if you're playing maybe Star Citizen, it would help if your game was on an SSD because that thing is just so fucked. If you're modding games, then an SSD would be a considerable help, especially if your Skyrim or whatever has 250 plus mods. Then it makes sense to put it on an SSD. But if you're playing something like, I don't know, Deus Ex, it really wouldn't matter. It really wouldn't. You use like a big hard drive for all your goofy games and you use the SSD for your boot drive and editing and so on and so forth. At least I do.
It's pretty fast RAM. It's 2,666 megahertz, I believe. So it's pretty fast, and this motherboard supports that
DDR4
speed,
standards, it's not too fast.
The slot.
That motherboard supports way more than that speed, but okay.
I wouldn't say it's like super fast for DDR4. That's kind of like, I would say average, maybe slightly below average, but
266 megahertz is not fast RAM. That's like the baseline speed of RAM right now for DDR4. If you were using a Ryzen CPU or a Threadripper CPU, that low RAM would really hinder your workflow and gaming experience. Oh boy.
That's not really fast. That's actually the standard these days for DDR4. It was fast back in like a year ago or something, and even later than that.
That's not very fast. That's really not very fast. Mine's like 3,200 megahertz.
And this motherboard supports that speed, which is most important.
It's baseline speed, my dude. It's not fast.
Or that's when you know the RAM.
No. You do. No, I didn't see this before. You do both sides at the same time. You shouldn't. They used to do this at IBM, and I think they later changed it because they had like a bunch of their mainframes coming back. People used to do one side and then the other side. You should make sure your RAM is slotted in so you can click down both sides at the same time, or else you risk breaking off the legs of the RAM slot and disconnecting and breaking it off the motherboard. Oh no, don't do that. Don't do that. I've seen builders that are like pros that don't know that.
Wait, whoa, what? Wait a minute, can we like fucking, wait a minute.
Wait, what? Okay, zoom in here. Oh my fucking god.
Oh wait, hold up. I see that right down there at the bottom. He's got...
Look how he has, look in the left, right where I have my mouse right now. What slots does he have those RAM in?
Wait, that's one stick of RAM.
Step 3, we're going to...
Did he just put them right next to each other?
We're going to install...
He has both of them installed in the wrong orientation, so he's not taking advantage of dual channel.
The dude put his RAM in the wrong places. They're right next to each other.
The RAM sticks in the slots right next to each other, so bam and bam.
Oh, dude! He just fucked it up. That's not dual channel memory. That's not dual channel. You fucked it up.
That's not running dual channel. What is he doing? That may not even post.
Wow, dude. Fucking wow. That's amazing. This is their tech guy. Good work, Verge, you fucking thieves.
What you should do is read the motherboard manual and see which slots are recommended to be populated first, because if you want optimal performance on this platform, it supports dual channel memory. In order to get dual channel memory support, you need to plug in the RAM sticks on specific slots. So read your damn manual.
But also, I just noticed that he has both of his RAM modules to the far right side, so he, I guess, is completely avoiding dual channel support because, I mean, this is just, some motherboards won't even boot. Like, you can't even get to the BIOS when you do this sometimes because You're just not supposed to. You have slot A, which is usually the second slot, and you have slot B, which is this far right slot, but he just completely ignored that. I don't know if he did it on purpose. Maybe his cooler's too big. We'll see what cooler he uses eventually, but that's not correct. That's actually super cringy.
I mean, there's sometimes like I've misread the directions of the motherboard, and I'll put him, I think I'll put it like you put him in slot 1 or slot 3 or slot 2 and slot 4, and so it runs in dual channel mode. And sometimes if you only have 2 out of the 4 slots filled for RAM, if you don't have the 2 slots the motherboard wants filled, if you don't have all 4 filled, it won't even post that way. There's a lot of times where if you try to put the RAM in single channel mode, if you put it into 2 slots right next to each other, it just won't post at all.
Oh my god. Okay, so you don't put the RAM next to each other. You put the RAM, like, let's say you put, first of all, you see where the CPU is? That's your first DIMM slot. So you put your first stick of RAM closest to the CPU. Then you skip a gap, and then you go to the next DIMM slot, because that's what enables dual channel memory. If you just put them right next to each other, yes, it'll actually recognize the RAM stick, but it won't run in dual channel, which effectively cuts its fucking speed. Like, it's, come on, dude, come on. What the fuck?
How? They wouldn't have posted this if it didn't work. Or maybe like it didn't work and then they like checked it out and then they Google it and they're like, oops, we put the RAM in the wrong DIMMs, haha. And then they didn't even bother to edit this shit.
So that I could input it into the motherboard without having to worry about extra wires or putting it in a separate part of the case and just getting really messy.
6.5 hours later.
I want you to remember what he just said about the case and getting really messy and the extra wires. Remember that.
We're going to install the graphics card. I chose PNY's GTX 1080.
He's installing the graphics card before he installs the CPU cooler, or anything like that. The GPU is generally the last thing you do, because it just gets in the way of everything else usually.
Now, which lane you choose depends entirely on what other parts you're going to put in the system.
Huh?
No. No. Okay. Listen here.
No, it fucking doesn't.
I'm just going to pick the top one because the SSD is at the bottom and I don't want to cover it.
Oh my god.
No. You need to put the graphics card in a 16 times bus speed. That's where you get an optimal speed, especially you're going to spend £2,000 on a computer. You want to make sure you're getting the fastest performance. Like 16 times is the fastest. The next slots down might be 8 times depending on the motherboard. And you don't just put it in any slot just because of the space.
You have to make sure you use the full bandwidth PCIe slot. Because there's a, especially if you don't buy a top, sometimes you buy a top of the line motherboard, all of the full PCIe slots will be full bandwidth, will all be 16x. But a lot of times, even higher range motherboards only have one 16x slot, and then they'll have like an 8x slot, another 8x slot, and then they'll have the smaller slots like the 4x slot and like a 1x slot if you want to hook up like a capture card or something. But no, you don't just pick, oh, let me put the card here, so I have a 2080 Ti and I have an 8x slot. Oh, it works pretty good there, it fits there, let me just put it in there and not use the full bandwidth slot. What are you telling them? People are going to follow this build, and they're going to be like, wait a second, I just bought this $1,000 graphics card. Why am I getting like 30 frames per second in this game? Because you're telling them to not put it in a full bandwidth slot. For Christ's sake, how did this pass on The Verge? How did people not see these fatal mistakes?
There is a big difference that it makes. Focus. There is a big difference that's made from choosing one versus the other slot. The top slot is the fastest.
PCI slots on your motherboard, not all of them run at the same speed. It's very important that you again read your manual and determine which slot is the by 16 slot. That is the one that you want to plug your graphics card in, as that one will give you the best performance. Maybe you could do it in a by 8 slot and it really won't make a difference, but really you want to put it in a by 16 slot. Do not just
I just think
Read your damn manual.
Okay, I was actually going to elaborate on why his statement regarding the PCIe slots is incorrect. They're not all the same, first off, and there are bandwidth limits, not assuming that these cards are going to hit those limits, but still, they exist, and that's why it does matter to an extent which slot you plug those cards into.
I just think it looks nice. Click down.
Yeah, put it where it looks nice. Don't put it where you actually get the full performance of the card. Holy shit.
Who hired this guy? This is like the perfect case of, like, this reminds me of my entire job experience where I couldn't land a job that I was good for, like I'd have been perfect for. For some reason, I couldn't get that job, but I'd be damned if it wasn't someone they hired that was a complete fucking, just an idiot. Or maybe not even an idiot, it's a guy who doesn't know what he's talking about and he has the job, you know?
And your GPU's installed.
Your GPU's installed. You're gonna get 1060 performance if you put it in the wrong slot. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but it's installed. Great, just put it wherever you want.
I chose Corsair's 850 watt power supply because I need enough headroom for ray tracing GPUs when they come out, and I don't want to have.
That's gonna be a while, bud. For a 1080, I think he said that he has. That's already plenty. 650 is plenty. That's what I have. I have a 1070, and I'm well under what I need.
850? Are you fucking insane? That's a lot, dude. I mean, I have a 750 watt in mine, and I'm still running 2 GPUs. And I don't have any power issues.
I mean, my system only takes like 350 to 400 watts. He doesn't need 850 for this build, but okay. Whatever you say.
Then moving on to 523, they say make sure you insert the power supply this way so it doesn't short circuit.
And make sure that you align it with these little insulating pads so that the power supply doesn't short circuit and come into contact with the rest of the system.
Those insulating... Holy shit.
I gotta replay this. I gotta make sure I heard this correct.
Not insulation. They're not insulating pads.
So the power supply doesn't short circuit and come into contact with the rest of the system. So all you have to do is take the brick and make sure that you align it with these little insulating pads so that the power supply doesn't short circuit and come into contact with the rest of the system.
So that the power supply doesn't short circuit and come into contact with the rest of the system. So you heard it from The Verge first, folks. If you place your bare power supply shell against your chassis while your PC is on, you will short circuit something, guaranteed. That is the most idiotic thing I've ever heard from any channel claiming to know anything at all about PCs. That is so... The statement is so dumb, but it's so funny.
These little insulating
I gotta
pads.
hear it one more time.
And make sure that you align it with these little insulating pads. So the power...
Once again, this is putting out misinformation that would make the average person think, oh wow, there's so much to this. I'd be worried I'd short circuit my computer when I put in my power supply. I'll just stick with my PlayStation 4 Pro. I don't need all this headache, and it costs $2,000 to make.
Oh, his logic is so flawed. One, that's not going to do anything because when you screw it onto the case, the power supply into the case, you are therefore connecting it to the case. So therefore, your point has been disproven. Also, that doesn't happen. Everything's contained inside the power supply. It's not going to short circuit anything.
The power supply, you could touch the outer casing of the power supply is not live. It's not going to electrocute you. It's not going to short against the case. All those, whatever case he has there, I'm not sure whatever brand he has, those are sound dampeners. So when the fan is spinning in the power supply, it doesn't make vibrations happen in the case. That's not to keep it insulated so it doesn't short out, you idiot.
They are for vibrations of the power supply. That's it.
Now you just take the
I
required
understand.
screws
Okay, hold
and
on.
tighten
Okay,
the
so
screw.
you're okay with the power supply touching the back side of the case, but it can't touch the base of the case because that's where it short circuits. I get it now.
Power supply is not going to short circuit unless you drop water in it or drop screws in it. Installing it the wrong way is not going to short circuit it. But in this case, the 280X, installing it the right way on the vibrator pads is going to make sure that it doesn't vibrate At 536, this is probably my biggest problem yet. They've mounted the power supply around the wrong way.
Slide it in nice and easy until you have a snug fit, and then shift it to the back and make sure it's right up against the frame. Slide it in nice and easy until...
Where is he putting the fan? Where is the fan gonna cool? Where is it going?
He's doing it again. He's doing it again. He's installing it with the fan facing inwards. How's it gonna...
You have a snug fit, and then shift it to the back and make sure it's right up against the frame.
Where? Yes. Make sure your fan is right against the frame so it can't circulate air. Oh my.
It's going to be starved of airflow completely. And this is very dangerous. For instance, if you've got a 500 watt power supply, you're going to be running it at 400 watts. That power supply can start to get hot. And if you've got it complete, especially over time, I mean, Corsair power supply is the one they've used, have good safety measures in place, but you don't want to be constantly tripping those safety measures if your computer's just randomly shutting off.
I can't believe this is a well-produced Verge video. How did they look at this and go, print it? That just shows you what state professional tech journalism is in right now. That someone saw this. This isn't a live stream. Like, look, people screw. I've seen like pro builders make mistakes during live streams. You're human. And sometimes, even if you have insane amounts of experience, some of the parts just don't work together well. Like, even if you've bought a high-end case, some of the holes where things are supposed to be screwed in don't line up perfectly, and shit happens. But this is a pre-recorded video that people probably thoroughly watched, that obviously was well produced by a good video editor and filmmaker and done in Premiere. And when it was cut and when it was reviewed and edited, no one saw any of this and went, hold the brakes. Hold them. No one saw it. Nobody. They just said print it.
As I was saying, CPU should have been put in ages ago in the motherboard outside the box, because technically you need to test all your hardware first before you actually install it all. Because if it doesn't work or you've got a problem with something, you have to take all of it out again. It's a waste of time. So memory, CPU should have been all done beforehand, and thermal grease.
Most people install the wires first before they put in the PSU. That way it makes plugging in all of those connectors so much easier. I'm a victim of doing this wrong myself, to be honest.
So next step, we're going to install the
Screw in your 850 watt power supply that's going to overheat.
What's the point of the fucking anti-static bracelet if you haven't connected it to anything to ground yourself with? He literally didn't use the anti-static bracelet right. He didn't ground himself. What the fuck is the point? What?
This is a guy working on The Verge with over 2 million subscribers that he's trying to demonstrate you the professional way to do it. And watch his cable management. This isn't a personal build. He's doing this, being paid to do this for a Verge video.
hose hang out for a little while until we install the processor, which is going to come a little later. Always.
It's just wrong. Once again, it's all wrong. Instead of installing the damn CPU first, he's going to install the AIO cooler. You don't want to do this. You really don't. Don't listen to this guy. He doesn't know what he's doing at all. He really doesn't know.
You don't do that. That's not, no. You install the CPU and then you install the cooler. But once again, okay.
At 6 minutes and 14 seconds, they're using the wrong screws to install the radiator, and they haven't even installed the fans on the radiator, which they don't show them installing in the entire...
They're just really long screws because they go through the entire frame of the cooler, and they take forever.
Oh my God! Stop!
Oh my God. Oh my God. He's really doing this. He's using the long screws that you use to attach the fans to the goddamn radiator. What the fuck?
So there's nothing special about this screwing in process. They're just really long screws.
Why is he using long screws? It should be the short screws. You get like little screws that are just meant to be for the top. These are for the fans to go on.
What the actual
He's gonna break the radiator. He's gonna go all the way through the radiator. You're not supposed to use the short screws. You don't use the long screws. The long screws is to go through the fan into like the screw hole of the radiator, not all the way through the radiator into the fan. That's not how it's supposed to work.
video still up is amazing. Maybe the Verge had comments up, you guys would learn that you did something wrong. Sometimes comments from people help you understand your mistakes.
If you're going to install a water cooler in the 280X, just install the fans first. That way you'll know if it lines up and it's not going to hit the motherboard or anything like that, in any case for that matter. And then also use the smaller screws to attach them to the top of the case. He said it took a long time.
So there's nothing special about this screwing in process. They're just really long screws because they go through the entire frame of the cooler and they take forever.
No wonder you used the wrong screws.
And they take forever.
Cause you're doing it wrong. They take forever. Cause you're doing it wrong. What?
And he's installing the radiator on top, like on the top layer, and the fans don't go. The fans are supposed to. Wait, what?
I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% sure, that there are instructions that come with everything from the cooler to the motherboard. And this guy just didn't bother to look at them. You can imagine how many computers he's fucked up in his life. No, maybe this is his first one. Forget. This is so bad. This seems like a troll video.
Every power supply is going to come with a big bag of Velcro cables. It's kind of daunting at first, so you always...
They don't all come with big cables because technically, if it's a power supply that's all... If it's not fully modular or semi-modular, then it won't. It'll be already attached to the power supply.
In this case, you need to match those cables with the correct descriptions on...
Man, he's making black people look stupid.
The power supply.
And the cables are not already in the power supply, so to make it easier to put in and obviously route them through to the motherboard and connect them all up.
And then later on in the build, they're inserting the CPU pretty much last in the process. And this is actually another dangerous point in this build because you're in a micro ATX case. There's not a lot of room to work with. Installing the CPU first, before you even put the motherboard in the build, is much better so you don't drop it or you don't bend any pins while you're trying to get that CPU in. If you've got limited space to work with, it can be a problem. So just, and especially in the 280X, just insert your CPU before you even put the motherboard into the case. It's going to make life much easier. The RAM's a different story. Sometimes you've got coolers that may not clear the RAM, so I can understand them installing the RAM after they put the motherboard in the case.
Installing the CPU, the heart of the computer or the brain, depending on how you look at it.
Hold on, bro. What step are we on? And we're just now installing the CPU cooler? I mean, the CPU? What? Bro, that should be like step one. What are you doing?
And if having a breakdown watching this, I apologize. I can't even make this funny. This is tragic.
This is incredible. I've never seen someone overthink putting a processor in, which, yes, is a very delicate thing and you have to be careful. But not. I'm just talking putting the chip in is one of the simplest things you do with a PC build. Pretty close to it.
You should have done it.
We're just going to take this little plastic part out. We'll just toss that out of here.
Oh, don't do that.
You fucking keep that. That's the fucking CPU you fucking dumbass. You put it in a box. Why?
You just don't toss that out. This is what I'm saying. You need to test the motherboard first, all your equipment first. Because if the motherboard's faulty and you haven't got that little plastic thing that he just chucked, they won't take the motherboard back and they'll void your warranty and you won't get your money back for your motherboard and they'll just send you back a broken motherboard even though it might have just got broken in the post. It's like AMD have pins, Intel have got the pins inside the actual motherboard. But it will get damaged. It's a socket. You need it.
What happens if you need to use it later? They say that on the plastic piece, I believe, Don't throw away, keep it.
Now we have an exposed CPU holder, or rather slot.
It's not it's not a holder or a slot, it's a socket.
But continue on, they use this bracket and they say you got to use it.
Why the fuck do you need a CPU applicator? What? Oh, let's just move on.
Not everyone may get, but this motherboard that we got from ASUS.
Wait, what are you doing?
This is a special little part that not everyone may get, but this
fuck?
motherboard that
What
we got
the
from
fuck
ASUS.
are you doing? Hold on, what?
That not everyone may get, but this motherboard that we got from ASUS.
What was he doing to the back end of the CPU?
Everyone may get, but this motherboard
Dang with the
What? What was he doing?
definitely does have. It's called a CPU installation tool.
What are you doing? You can't do that. You don't touch the bottom of the thing. Ever, with anything. Especially your fingers because of the oils.
There's no pins on
This
that
is a special little
CPU.
part that
What?
not everyone may get, but this
He put the CPU in the thing, and then he just fucking sat it on top. Like, what?
It's called a CPU installation tool. It makes it really useful.
You literally just drop the CPU in the socket. You don't need this thing at all.
This little installer does for you is it's basically a brace that you can
Dude, all you gotta do is just match up the golden fucking triangle on the CPU with the socket. What's with all the overthinking here? You've like half-assed everything else, and you're making it like you're doing brain surgery. Just match up the two fucking corners and put the CPU in.
for you is it's basically a brace that you can apply right to the CPU.
You don't need this. Don't listen to him. This man knows nothing. He knows absolutely nothing. How he has a job amazes me. He's probably a college graduate. Remember that. This is a college graduate, most likely. He probably passed with some good honors or something, and he doesn't know his ass from his elbow. The future is dark.
Makes it really useful.
You just
if
drop
want to
the chip into the
install
socket.
A Core i7 hexa-core CPU.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've
Oh,
got
yeah.
one, and it's
You
an
got
8th
one.
generation chip, and
You
it's
got
ready
it,
to go.
bro.
And it supports overclocking. Yeah, we've got one, and it's an 8th.
He's like, Core i7 CPU. It's like he's flexing on everyone. It's like he's just like, yeah. Don't worry, dude. I know what supports overclocking. I'm not a fucking retard. we know.
Got one, and it's an 8th generation chip, and
They've
it's
got
ready
one.
to go. And it supports overclocking. A Core i7 hexa-core CPU.
Still not
Yeah,
grounded to
we've got
anything.
one, and it's an 8th generation chip, and it's ready to go.
He's got an 8th wave generation chip. Right, it's an engineering sample from Intel. Why would Intel send you a CPU when you don't really know how to build a computer properly? I don't understand. And technically, it's probably 8700K CPU, and
Hey, my guy lied like hell on his job application.
Every CPU
I don't
cooler
know
actually
what you
comes
did.
with a bit of supports overclocking.
I have a
So
feeling
what
you wouldn't know how to
having this
overclock,
little
dude.
installer does, and we're gonna clasp down on it, and
Yo,
we'll be
wait
good
a
to
minute.
go. And make sure
That
that
almost
everything
gave me.
lines
This
up.
almost gave me a bit of a heart
And
attack.
we're
Look
just
at
gonna
this real quick.
carefully lean it down into the system and make sure that everything lines.
Yo, that gives me a little heart attack. You see how it, like
up.
jumps up a little bit? That gave me a little heart attack. I ain't gonna lie. You didn't tell you to like apply it by like matching the fucking arrows? Ooh, that
And
gave
we're
me
gonna
that
clasp
gave me a
down on
little
it
that gave
and
me a
we'll be good
little
to go.
And then when they're inserting the CPU, they don't use it at all.
Bottom left corner.
There's a triangle
and
on the
this will make it
board.
easier for us to apply it to the motherboard and then apply thermal paste and then
You
apply
just
a
drop the
CPU cooler on top.
CPU into the
And we're
socket.
just going to carefully
You
lean it
literally
down into
just
the
did it.
system and make sure that everything lines up. And we're going to clasp
There's
down
you don't
on
even
it
have the
and we'll be
bracket
good to go.
on there. I think you realized halfway through filming that that was completely pointless.
Clasp down on it and
It's right there. I thought you used it to put the CPU in.
clasp down on it and we'll be good to go.
the brackets on the.
So we're about to apply thermal paste.
And then at 8 minutes and 17 seconds, they said every cooler comes with thermal paste.
So we're about to apply thermal paste to the CPU.
This
Every
is
CPU
good.
cooler actually comes with a bit of thermal paste.
Get ready. There's multi-dimensional fail here. Multi-dimensional fail is coming. Just
Some coolers, especially air coolers, will come with just a sticker and some own thermal paste in a tube that you can apply yourself. And then they go on at 8 minutes and 28 seconds to apply extra thermal paste on a Intel Ring Bus CPU.
Why would you need to apply thermal grease if there's thermal grease on the AIO? Most AIOs come with thermal grease already on there. A nice thin layer because you don't need too much. You're only meant to have less than a P amount on a CPU, depending on what CPU it is. Could be different from AMD Threadripper or something like that. But technically, he doesn't need any thermal compound unless, in this video, he's going to wipe that off and put this thermal compound on because it's better and it's better at making better contact and a better sealing, because you don't want to get air bubbles in it or anything like that, because obviously when the temperature rises, the temperature obviously gets hotter, it has air bubbles and stuff, and then it might not have a good contact to the IHS.
Base already neatly applied in a circle around it, but it's usually not enough. It's good.
It's fine unless you're doing something like super heavy duty overclocking. It's fine. It's not a big deal. I use the pads all the time. I get shit from people on YouTube and social media for using the pads. But those pads, you have a nice even layer of thermal compound, thermal paste, thermal pad, whatever you want to call it. So long as you screw on the heatsink properly, you're good to go.
But it's usually not enough. It's good, essentially PC building practice to have a little bit extra and layer it on top of the CPU.
No, the fuck it is not.
And layer it on
Oh my god.
What is he doing?
Is to add.
Oh my god, that is so much more than you need.
Top of this.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Bruh, this dude put thermal paste on thermal paste. This dude put thermal paste on thermal paste for optimal cooling.
You don't need to apply thermal paste. Someone stop him. There's already thermal paste on the Corsair, what is that, H150i Pro? Why are you doing this?
Right, there has been so much controversy about how much thermal grease and thermal compound, what is the best and which way to do it, and it's been going on for years and then it stopped, and then this guy literally got thermal grease compound on his AIO, which he got from Corsair, and he's putting thermal grease on thermal grease on thermal grease, basically, because there's thermal grease on the CPU. He's putting thermal grease on the IHS, and he's got the thermal grease on the AIO.
He's sandwiching third-party paste onto the IHS with stuff that's already pre-applied onto the Corsair cooler, or whatever cooler he's using. That is so cringy. I've never seen that before. I've never heard that ever recommended before. It's probably not recommended for a good reason. You probably get some weird air bubbles and stuff trapped between them. I don't know, but I know that that's not conventional, and him recommending this on a site like The Verge is just a little disappointing.
What the fuck is he going for? Like a Stara David CPU cooler? What the fuck? Just put one fucking dot in the center or an X. God, dude.
The final portion is to add the CPU already neatly applied in a circle around it.
You don't need any more, stupid. Why would you do? Look at that. It's already there. Stop now.
That can do damage. If the thermal paste is conductive, it can leak onto the motherboard if you put too much on, and it can short circuit stuff. That is where you can short circuit stuff.
But it's usually not enough.
It's not enough. Oh my god. Jesus fuck. This man has a job. I wouldn't trust him to stack eggs because he'd fuck it up somehow.
You do not need to apply any extra thermal paste with this Corsair All-in-One. It'll do an absolutely fine job how it is out of the box. But pretty much they just literally make a flood here of thermal paste on the CPU. Now this is a bad thing.
Good, essentially PC building practice to have a little bit extra and layer it on top of the CPU. Rather like
what? Hold on, move your hand.
Here. Processor. So you're gonna see that there are 4 brackets, or rather like screws.
Ooh.
Whatever. What did he do there?
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
How much fucking... Look at all this thermal paste. What are you doing?
Rather like
oh my god, look at that.
The processor. So you're gonna see that there are 4...
Oh my god, he's like literally emptied the whole thing. And he still hasn't sorted the RAM out.
Look at that.
What? He looks like I gave a 4-year-old a crayon and told him to paint something.
Dude, what the fuck is that? Like Art Attack? Dude, are you looking at that CPU? Holy fucking shit!
They're like screws
Bro,
in here with brackets.
Relax.
That is... Oh my god. Oh, that is awful.
Here.
Relax. That doesn't cool that.
And they're going to keep the cooler raised off the processor.
Does he
but
not know? Like, what is he doing?
it's also going to be close enough
But
to
you're not
actually
caking
physically
it
come in
yet. You gotta
contact with it, but
overclock.
basically
Oh,
keep
dude,
it
that's
cool.
embarrassing.
Take
Oh, what the fuck is that?
If that thermal paste you have is capacitive, like Arctic Silver 5 for example, your computer just won't boot up. So do not apply this much thermal paste, and if you've got a cooler like the Corsair all-in-ones that they're using, you don't even need any extra thermal paste applied.
Look at that. Just it's like he drew a little maze with thermal paste all over the IHS, and then he's going to sandwich that on top of what he's already got pre-applied on the water block.
here.
This is...
And they're going to keep the cooler raised off the processor, but it's also going
But you either put a little like pea size in the center of the CPU when you put down the cooler on there, it'll spread it out evenly. I've seen some people where they put a small amount and they use like a credit card to spread it evenly because they feel they're paranoid. They want to make sure the whole CPU is covered for direct contact. What the fuck is that? That is a mess.
If you already have an AIO cooler, they come with their own paste. You can use that, it is fine. If you want to use a better thermal paste, then you remove the thermal paste on the copper plating of the AIO. You don't add extra thermal paste, ever. You don't double down, and you don't add that much. You do like one little drop of it, you know, like a bead on, you know, the traditional Intel and Ryzen CPUs, you know, the normal size one. On a Threadripper, you probably have to be more, you do have to be more generous with it. Just saying. But Jesus Christ, I can't get through this.
He's keeping the thermal pad on. He's not using isopropyl alcohol or denatured alcohol to wipe it off. He's using thermal paste and the pad. Do you know how disastrous that could possibly be? That means there could be gaps in between. That means that there could be not direct contact. And if there's not direct contact, you're not going to cool the CPU properly. And it may be like not having thermal paste on at all. It could be that disastrous. This just shows that there's so many people at The Verge, not even just this guy, who don't know anything about tech.
But I can't get over that fucking thermal paste on the thermal paste. Hell nah. If he did everything else right in this video, just that one thing alone is gonna get him hella dislikes.
Of course, the back panel where...
And then we move on to 9 minutes and 6 seconds, and the cable management here is just non-existent. In the past, you guys hear me joke about jungle sandwiches, but this is how a jungle sandwich is born, ladies and gentlemen.
So now that our internals are done, we're going to put all the panels back on, which is the top glass, side glass.
Your internals are not done. They're in there. They may be done in a different way by frying themselves to death, but they're not done.
And of course, the back panel where all this fun stuff is happening.
So many different cable management.
So we fully built the PC.
Oh.
So we fully built the PC.
No.
All this fun stuff.
Presented by Capital One. Gotta love it, man. As long as you're a big corporate company, they don't care how fucking stupid you are. They'll slather you with those dollar signs.
So we fully built the PC.
I called it. I called it. Oh, what is that? Oh my god, mine has like 10 times better cable management, like 50 million times better cable management than that.
People just don't care about how they work with PCs. There's not even a step in this guide to show how to manage cables in a case like the 280X, which is designed for easy cable management. There's room at the back where you can hide cables if you're sloppy with cable management. And then at the front, there's so many easy places to route cables. I don't know how they got this one so wrong.
He just has them hanging. Your case has so much room behind there. Can we look at how much room you have behind there? Why are you trying to...
I look like one of them Twitch streamer PC builds. You ever seen like somebody that's like a Twitch streamer, but they don't really know shit about PCs, and they're like, I just built my first PC, look at it. And then and then you see all these fucking cables everywhere, like, oh, you just go, and then they'll be like, I'll do it later. And then the shit just stays that way for the whole entire time that they have the PC. Like, bruh, what is this 8-pin cable doing? 24-pin is just like...
We fully built the PC and it's a fucking mess. The tubing of the cooler is on the back plate of the graphics card.
And then at 9 minutes and 12 seconds, they said they made it to the post screen.
We got to the post screen. So what's next?
I'm glad. I'm glad you didn't screw something up. I'm surprised you didn't short circuit your motherboard with the thermal paste.
That's a miracle.
I want to see where, like, does he even notice that he only has 8 gigabytes of RAM and not 16?
Native resolution, which is 1080p HD.
1080p and 75 frames?
And
1080p and 75 frames?
I'm averaging 70 and 80.
Bro, 1080, what graphic card did you get,
like
dog?
A very intensive game to run. And it's still doing a pretty good job.
9 minutes and 50 seconds, they're playing like literally the easiest to play multiplayer game out there on a $2,000 PC, and they're capping the frames to 120 FPS and saying you don't really need it.
So right now I'm playing League of Legends. It's one of my favorite.
I beg your pardon? I beg your pardon?
Why would you need that sort of graphics card for this stuff?
Against a bot.
League of Legends,
and I'm
that
distracted,
is not PC
so I'm not
Master
actually doing
Race.
so well. I'm actually playing against a bot, and I'm distracted, so I'm not actually doing so well.
You don't need a hexa-core i7 and an 1080 to play League of Legends.
Pretty much what you would see me.
So he showed, I don't know what the first game was with the jet in it, but he's showing League of Legends, which can run on a potato.
He looks like he's a League of Legends player. Look at those keystrokes. This guy's a fucking pro.
So right now I'm playing League of Legends. It's one of my favorite games. I'm actually playing against a bot.
Oh, dude. What the fuck was that? Low. Paying $2,000 to play League. Oh, dude. Oh, dude, fist my ass and call me Muda. Goddamn. Oh, dude. Oh, Jesus Christ. They don't make memes this good, dude. They don't make this that good, dude.
That gaming PC you just built is way overkill for League of Legends in 1080p, so for this to be your second game of choice to showcase for this gaming PC build, you've done the entire build a disservice. This is kind of a joke at this point.
This is going to be the benchmark PC for the Verge. This hodgepodge, poorly put together computer with the absolute worst wire management you have ever seen, and the RAM that's supposed to be running dual channel only has one DIMM slot in the correct area.
I'm averaging 120 FPS, and that's only because I've actually locked.
Because you got a GTX 1080 in there, and that game does not demand that much power.
Pretty much what you would see me do on a gaming computer. Test stuff out.
You don't even need this much power. This guy.
And I'm averaging 120 FPS, and that's only because I've actually locked the game.
Imagining enabling VSync on a competitive game. Oh, mega lol, dude.
To that around 300 FPS playing League on maximum settings.
You don't
which
say.
It's a little bit absurd, and you don't really need that, so
No, because you can't see that on a monitor like that.
Has been a great experience, and I'll be able to play a lot of upcoming.
Guys, I was playing Spider Solitaire at 1080p, 300 frames.
Competitive gamers actually do need higher frame rates. This is proven. They love high frame rates to get the fastest draw possible so they can get a competitive edge.
Like, stop. Like, how are you only getting 120 frames per sec? But why are you not testing out Battlefield 1? Why aren't you testing out countless other games that would be way more demanding than this with this kind of build?
And no one at The Verge looked at this and said, this looks right. No one said something seems off. This is utterly atrocious. He's using League of Legends as a benchmark for the PC.
So you're a gamer, but you're using not a gaming keyboard.
Yeah. You know what's crazy about PC gamers? They will do shit like this. Like, you'll build a $2,000 PC and then play League of Legends or Fortnite or some shit like that. Like, bro, what are you doing?
And you don't really need that, so I locked it. Building a gaming...
So show more demanding games. You just built a fairly high-end gaming PC. Why are you showing... I don't even know, what was that, Flight Simulator? I don't even know what the fuck that was. And you're showing League of Legends? Countless other games I could think of you could have shown besides that one.
When ray tracing GPUs come out, for example, I'll be able to upgrade without having to buy a completely new system. And if I have...
You spent $2,000... Wait, whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. That was $2,000 before? He didn't have a ray trace GPU?
And it's sponsored by Capital One, a credit card company.
Problem down the line, I can always just swap out a part and have it serviced right.
Don't swap anything out in there. I do not want you touching the thing again. You may light yourself on fire. This had to be like his second build ever. Like, he's probably a journalist at The Verge. I don't know the guy. I didn't look into anything about him. I don't really care. And he probably built like one computer before this. And they were like, "Oh, hey, what the hell is his name? I heard you could build a computer." You're like, "Yeah, I built one before. I almost, cut my ass cheek off in the process. All right, build one for a video because we need one." Okay.
So that's about it with the video itself, but I managed to find this image out there on the internet of the build finished, but you get to see a different angle of it. And the first thing that comes to mind is another dangerous point, and that is the cooler itself is missing a screw in the bottom left corner. And if you're going to exclude screws when you're mounting a cooler, either mount it only on one diagonal or two diagonals. Don't leave one screw out because that corner will then have uneven pressure, and this can allow the CPU to overheat in a bad way.
Yeah, his cable management was ever, dude. But like the actual system, bro, I don't know.
That's probably why they removed the video from the Verge channel, because it was that bad.
Even Linus Tech Tips jumped in by going, "I'd actually love to come out and help if you want to do a part 2 or follow-up to this." I'm not 100% sure if Linus is trolling or if Linus is just genuinely trying to get his face everywhere to continuously get subscribers.
This literally would have required like 20 seconds worth of cable management, but he didn't even want to yank on cables because, I don't know, this is like a parody video. That's what it feels like to me.
Guarantee you something goes wrong with that computer in like a month.
I have no words. There's not many black people that build computers, and he's just made us look stupid.
You also get to see the way that they've installed the RAM, and it's on the two outer DIMMs on the motherboard, which they essentially you pair memory together in channels, and this is not the way to do it. You're going to get single channel memory out of this when you don't need to. You can get dual channel for just moving one of those DIMMs into another slot.
I mean, look at this thing. And yes, that was his 8-pin cable. So he has his 8-pin EPS running through the front. He's got his 24-pin just kind of hanging. He's got his VGA supplemental 8-pin, it looks like right there. And it's just a mess. It's an ugly looking build. Definitely could have taken, again, a minute or so to clean this up, and then it would have looked at least much more presentable than the way he has it here. I don't know. This just doesn't look good.
So it's easily one of the worst builds I've seen on the internet to date, and especially coming from a channel with over 2 million subscribers. What the hell is going wrong? This video should not be left up because it's so misinformative that someone could follow this who's just getting into PC building and make some serious mistakes and cost themselves time and money. And you don't want to do that to someone just getting into PC building. And not only that, there's more than one name on this video too. So how did more than one person with a channel over 2 million subscribers get it so wrong? I have no idea.
Think about everything he did wrong. The power supply's fan is pressed against the metal of the case. It's not cooling. He put the RAM in the two same slots. It obviously posted. It seems like the RAM, he didn't actually put it in dual channel mode in the proper slot. So he has like 16 gigs of RAM running in single channel mode. He totally screwed up how he put in, how he applied thermal paste. He didn't remove the thermal pad that the closed loop cooler came with. He thinks that the power supply, the outer casing, actually has electricity going through it, so it'll short out if it touches the case, and didn't realize those rubber pads where you put the power supply was actually just to dampen sound, so there wasn't vibration.
Instead, just take the video down and make a follow-up video just saying, hey, sorry, we made some mistakes. Here's not what to do if you're doing PC building, and here's how we fix those mistakes. You'll get a lot more views, you'll get a lot more love. There's just no need to do this and claim the ignorance card.
It was so bad that they had to remove it from their channel. The Verge, a company YouTube channel, like it's a YouTube channel based on a company. You would think that a tech enthusiast company like this would have their shit down and would watch the video before you do it. Have somebody that's intelligible in that subject area watch the video before they do that.
And actually, he's not even made us look stupid. He's made the whole community look like, if they just, some people see this video from The Verge is really big. That means that literally the computers might not necessarily break, but technically you're not going to get the best performance because it's not done properly. They should have definitely read the manual. Anyway.
You know, when the producer at The Verge makes statements like this, you shouldn't expect too much in the way of actual content, in my opinion. What a pretentious thing to say, Phil. We should all bow down to your technical superiority, right? Because you guys type stuff and we film it. Honestly, if you were willing to approve this video, you have no place in the computer journalism space anyway. No intended rhyme there. I mean, the guy on camera might be completely hands-off when it comes to production, and that's fine. I'm not faulting him specifically. I just think that it definitely could have been conveyed much better than it was. Whoever wrote the script for sure needs a refresher, a really quick one in regards to PC building. The reason why I think they disabled comments and likes and dislikes is because they saw how many people gave negative feedback in the comment sections, including myself. I literally pointed directly to the timestamp where he talked about, you know, short-circuiting your system when your power supply is not standing on rubber mats, I guess is what he was trying to say. None of that makes sense. That's all misleading, and you're going to tell people how to build a PC the wrong way, and that's why a video like this exists, to shoot down any, I don't know, misconception out there that this video is accurate from The Verge, because it's not. Anyone who's built any PC at all ever knows that some of the things shown in this video were not true.
Now, as I said before, you would expect a litany of people that know something about putting together a computer to rip Verge a new asshole, and rightfully so. This video is grossly misinformed. Also, on some of their professional photos of this great PC build, someone points out that the CPU cooler is missing one of its goddamn knobs that holds it in place. It's just gone. Like, this level of gross negligence and lack of an ability, oh my god, the cable management is retarded. They're just zip ties to be there for no reason. Still, no one has put the RAM in the correct slot yet. It's ridiculous. Just seriously, gross negligence, misinformation, lack of understanding what they're doing, and there is no excuse, considering there are countless videos on YouTube showing you how to put together. And what do? They put out this piece of shit. It's sad, really. It's pathetic. It's an egregious mistake. They even block comments. And in doing so, this stops people from giving their 2 cents. Granted, it'll be a lot of negative responses, but it will leave people just going through who are new to PC building, usually only checking out verified channels or stuff that YouTube deems as worthy, because obviously YouTube would suggest this video even though it's wrong and would actually lead to someone messing up their computer. But the fact that it's a big YouTube channel that's verified, they would still pump this out without a second thought because the algorithm is broken. And without the comment section, so that people could look there and read what people have to say about this, like, whoa, there's a lot of negative comments here. There are all these things wrong. I'll go someplace else to get my information. It could be detrimental to the community as a whole, but who really gives a shit, right?
It makes it really useful if you want to install a Core i7 hexa-core CPU. Yeah, we've got one.
Fake GTX 780? Yep, we've got one.